time in life when everything you built begins to collapse. The plans you trusted fall apart, one after another. Dreams you carried for years feel like shadows fading away. The people you counted on may step back, leaving you in silence. And in that silence, you begin to wonder if it was all for nothing. But it's in that very silence that strength is born. It is in these moments that a man, or a woman, faces their greatest test. Not when everything is going well, not when applause is in the air and hands are shaking yours in agreement, but when the world grows quiet, when the spotlight dims, when you sit alone and question if there's any strength left to continue. History has taught us that the finest steel is forged in the hottest fire, and so it is with life. When the storms rage and when the nights seem endless, something remarkable begins to stir within the human spirit. A quiet voice, almost a whisper, speaks. Stand. Stand again. Even if the knees shake, even if the heart is heavy. Stand. Most men give up not because they lack the tools, but because they lost sight of why they began. They see the ruins and forget that ruins are the birthplace of rebuilding. They see the ashes and forget that ashes feed the soil for new growth. They see silence and mistake it for abandonment, when in truth, silence is the training ground for courage. Think back on your own life. Was there ever a moment when you thought you couldn't go on, but somehow you did? Perhaps you were betrayed. Perhaps you failed. Perhaps you lost something you thought you could never live without. Yet here you are, listening, breathing, standing. That, my friend, is proof that within you lies a power far greater than any setback that could ever befall you. When everything falls apart, life is not punishing you. It is preparing you to see beyond the surface, to understand that true success is not measured by the absence of hardship, but by the presence of resilience. True greatness is not in avoiding the storm, but in walking through it with unshaken resolve. Many wait for perfect conditions before they act again. They wait for doors to open, for friends to return, for confidence to appear like a sudden sunrise. But life doesn't work that way. The dawn doesn't come because you wish for it, it comes because you endure the night. This very moment, where everything feels like it's crumbling, is not the end of your story. It is the turning point. The chapter where the hero discovers his courage, the chapter where the woman finds her voice, the chapter where the broken spirit learns that being broken was the first step toward being unbreakable. Do not run from this silence. Do not curse the collapse. Lean into it. Listen to it. For in the stillness of loss, you will hear the beginnings of strength. In the emptiness of failure, you will discover the blueprint for your rise. And when you rise, and you will rise stronger, clearer, and more determined than you ever were before. When life begins to fall apart, the first instinct of most people is to run, to escape, to hide, or to bury themselves beneath the rubble, hoping the storm will pass on its own. Yet no man or woman has ever risen to greatness by hiding from hardship. The very trials you fear, the very difficulties you wish away, are the chisels that carve out your true strength. Buried in the darkness of soil, it is pressed upon by the weight of the earth. It feels the cold, it feels the damp, and if it could think as we do, perhaps it would believe it had been buried as punishment. Yet what appears to be burial is, in truth, planting. That darkness, that pressure, is the only environment in which it can break open and grow into what it was destined to be. So it is with us. The collapse of our plans, the betrayals, the setbacks, and the silence, they are not our burial, they are our planting. But only those with the courage to remain in the soil, to endure the pressing weight, will ever break through to see the sunlight again. Every man and woman who has accomplished something meaningful has faced moments when everything seemed lost. The great explorers who sailed across oceans had nights when storms nearly swallowed them whole. The thinkers and inventors who gave us progress had days when they sat in rooms filled with failure and rejection. And yet, they pressed forward. They endured the dark night, believing there was something worth waiting for beyond the horizon. The difference between those who rise and those who wither lies in how they see the collapse. The weak man sees the rubble and declares, "This is the end." The strong man sees the rubble and whispers, "Here begins my rebuilding." One gives up, the other gets up. And that choice, though simple, makes all the difference. No storm lasts forever. No winter holds the world in its grip without eventually yielding to spring. And no collapse is so complete that a determined soul cannot rise again. The walls of your life may have crumbled, but the foundation, your courage, your spirit, your will, remains. Upon that foundation, you can build again, brick by brick, stronger than before. Rebuilding is not easy. It requires patience when your heart longs for quick results. It requires faith when evidence of success is nowhere to be seen. It requires effort when your body feels too weary to take another step. That is why most men surrender, not because the collapse defeated them, but because they chose not to rise from it. Think about this. What if the very collapse you fear today is the preparation for the life you've always wanted? What if the silence you hear is not emptiness, but space being cleared for something greater? What if the setback you mourn is the training that will shape you into the person capable of carrying the dream you were meant for? It is only in moments of loss that you discover what truly matters. When the noise of the world dies down, when the applause is gone, when the support vanishes, you are left with one companion, yourself. And it is in facing yourself, in the quiet mirror of adversity, that you find out whether you are fragile or unbreakable. So do not despise this season of collapse. Do not curse the silence. Do not mistake your planting for your burial. For out of this darkness, if you endure, will rise a strength that no easy victory could ever give you. Rising through the rubble. When a building collapses, the first reaction of most who pass by is sorrow, lament for what once stood tall. But the wise architect does not look at the ruins with despair. He kneels, studies the foundation, and begins to imagine what greater structure might be built in its place. You must learn to look at your own life in the same way. The ruins you see today are not the end. They are the clearing ground for what comes next. Yes, there has been loss. Yes, there has been pain. But look closely. The ground is still yours. The foundation is still firm, and your spirit still breathes. That is enough to begin again. What most fail to understand is that adversity is not an intruder in life. It is a companion. It visits every home, it knocks at every door. The question is not whether hardship will come, but whether you will open the door as a victim or as a student. Victims cry, "Why me?" Students ask, "What is this here to teach me?" One grows bitter, the other grows better. In every collapse, there is a lesson hidden among the dust. Sometimes it is patience, sometimes it is courage, sometimes it is clarity about who belongs in your life and who does not. Sometimes it is the revelation that you have been chasing what is temporary when what you truly long for is eternal. You must begin to treat your hardships as a kind of school, not the kind that awards diplomas or medals, but the kind that forges character, the kind that strips away what is unnecessary so that only what is essential remains. Greatness has never been born out of ease. It is born in the furnace of trial. Think of the oak tree. If the wind never blew against it, its roots would never dig deep. It would grow tall but fragile, doomed to topple at the first true storm. But because the winds press against it year after year, the tree digs deeper, becoming unshakable. So too must you allow the winds of adversity to strengthen your roots, rather than weaken your resolve. There will be voices that tell you to quit. Some of those voices may even come from within. They will whisper, "This is too hard. You cannot go on. Others have it easier. Why must it always be you?" And if you listen, if you surrender, then you will live in the ruins, forever walking among the shadows of what might have been. But if you choose instead to rise, to look at the rubble and declare that it shall not be your grave but your foundation, you will begin a journey few have the courage to take. A journey where pain becomes a teacher, silence becomes a sanctuary, and failure becomes the first stone of a new beginning. Every moment you endure the weight of adversity, you are being shaped. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but like the sculptor chiseling away at stone, life is chiseling away at you. Each blow removes what does not belong, until at last, the figure within, the strong, unshakable version of yourself, emerges. So rise through the rubble, walk into the dust with your head held high, for the ruins before you are not the end of your story, but the opening lines of a greater chapter yet to be written. The discipline of endurance. Endurance, how simple the word sounds, and yet how difficult it is to practice. To endure is to stand firm when the winds howl, when the nights stretch long, and when the heart pleads for relief. It is to rise each morning and face the same battle again, even when yesterday left you weary and bruised. Endurance is not glamorous. It does not earn applause, but it is the golden thread that runs through the fabric of every great life. Men and women often imagine that success is built on brilliance, talent, or luck, and while these things may play their part, they are never enough on their own. The great difference between those who remain standing and those who collapse is endurance. The willingness to take one more step even when the body screams to stop. The decision to keep walking in the dark, trusting that dawn will eventually appear. History remembers the victors, but seldom does it record the endless nights of persistence that preceded their triumphs. The writer who produced a book that changed the world endured countless pages of rejection before a publisher gave him a chance. The scientist who unlocked secrets of the universe endured years of ridicule before discovery proved him right. The leader who inspired nations endured exile, prison, and failure before his voice shook the earth. Endurance is the bridge between collapse and victory. Endurance is costly. It demands sacrifice. It demands that you do not give in to the comfort of quitting. It demands that you silence the voice that says, "This is enough. I cannot bear more," because the truth is, you can bear more, much more than you believe. The human spirit is far stronger than the human mind dares to admit. How do we endure? Not by staring endlessly at the mountain ahead, but by focusing on the step at our feet. One step, then another, then another. No man climbs to the peak in a single leap. He places one foot, then the other, refusing to turn back no matter how steep the trail. So it is with you. Do not measure your progress by how far you still have to go. Measure it by the fact that you have not stopped. Endurance also requires perspective. A runner will collapse if he believes the race has no finish line, but if he knows there is an end, he draws strength from the vision of the goal. So too must you hold before your eyes the certainty that this season of trial will not last forever. Remind yourself that winter always yields to spring, that night always gives way to dawn. Keep your eyes fixed on that promise, and you will find the strength to endure the present struggle. Each moment of endurance is building something within you that cannot be built any other way. It is laying stone upon stone, brick upon brick, shaping a foundation that will carry the weight of your future victories. Without endurance, your success would collapse beneath its own weight. With endurance, you will stand unshakable when others fall. So I urge you, embrace endurance as your companion. Do not despise the long nights or the weary days, for each one endured is a victory in itself, and when at last the storm passes, you will find yourself not only surviving, but stronger, deeper, and more resilient than you ever thought possible. Finding purpose in the pain. Pain, though dreaded, has always been one of life's greatest teachers. Strip away the illusions, and pain remains as the force that refines, clarifies, and awakens. It is through pain that men discover what truly matters. And it is through pain that we find purpose powerful enough to carry us through any storm. We must learn to see pain not as the enemy, but as the sculptor. For just as a rough block of marble is struck again and again before a figure emerges, so too must we be struck by life until the figure of our true character appears. Every blow hurts, every strike feels unfair, but the sculptor is not destroying the marble, he is revealing what was always hidden within. The great mistake many make is to waste their pain. They sit in bitterness, asking, "Why me? Why now?" And in their resentment, they learn nothing. Yet those who rise above, those who look pain in the eye and ask, "What is this here to teach me?" those are the ones who discover purpose. Purpose gives meaning to suffering. Without it, pain feels unbearable, like endless night with no hint of dawn. But when you find a reason, when you discover that your pain can shape you into a wiser, braver, stronger person, you begin to carry it differently. It is no longer a chain around your neck, but a weight that builds your strength. Consider those who endured trials far greater than our own. Many of them chose to turn their pain into a gift for others. The man who suffered loss used his experience to comfort the grieving. The woman who failed 1,000 times used her lessons to guide others toward success. Their pain was not wasted. It was transformed into light. And you must believe that your pain, too, can serve a purpose beyond your present understanding. Perhaps it is preparing you for a task that demands uncommon strength. Perhaps it is shaping your compassion so that one day you may lift others from the very pit you once knew. Or perhaps it is simply forging a resilience in you that will stand as a silent example to those who watch your life. Whatever the reason, pain is never meaningless unless you allow it to be. Refuse to waste it. Refuse to let it harden you into bitterness. Instead, let it soften you into wisdom, into patience, into purpose. The world does not admire those who never fell, who never bled, who never knew loss. It admires those who fell and rose again, who bled and yet healed, who lost much and yet continued to give. These are the ones who inspire, not by perfection, but by perseverance. So, when life presses you with pain, do not ask for it to be taken away too soon. Ask instead for the strength to endure it, and for the wisdom to see its purpose. For in the end, you will find that the very thing you wished to escape was the thing that prepared you for the life you are meant to live. The unbreakable spirit. There is a point in every struggle where the battle is no longer about circumstances, but about the spirit within. You may lose wealth, you may lose friends, you may lose the comfort of certainty, but if your spirit remains unbroken, you have lost nothing permanent, for the spirit is the wellspring from which all else flows. An unbreakable spirit does not mean a life without tears. It does not mean you will never stumble, never doubt, never feel fear. It means that no matter how heavy the blow, no matter how deep the wound, you refuse to surrender your will to rise. You may bend, but you will not break. You may pause, but you will not quit. Greatness is not the absence of weakness, but the mastery of it. The strongest oak still sways in the storm, yet it does not snap. The greatest men and women were not made of iron, but of flesh and blood, just like you. They wept, they struggled, they despaired, but they continued. That continuation, that refusal to quit, is what carved their names into the story of history. Every morning you rise again after defeat. Every night you go to sleep having endured another day. You prove to yourself that your spirit is stronger than the forces that sought to break it. That is victory, not the kind sung in headlines or praised in crowds, but the quiet, eternal victory of knowing you cannot be destroyed by circumstance. The unbreakable spirit is not born in times of ease. It is born in collapse, in the nights when you cry out and no answer comes, in the days when you carry burdens that feel far too heavy. It is born when you walk through the valley and discover that you can keep walking, even when the end is nowhere in sight. Your greatest possession is not your wealth, your status, or even your dreams. It is your spirit. For when the storms take everything else, the spirit remains, and from it, all things can be rebuilt. Guard it. Feed it with faith, with courage, with determination. Do not allow bitterness to poison it or fear to chain it. Speak to it as you would a dear friend. Remind it of its strength. Encourage it when it falters, and never abandon it when the world grows cold. For the world is watching, not the crowds, not the strangers, but those near you, those silent souls who take courage from your example. When they see you rise through collapse, when they witness your unbreakable spirit, they are emboldened to find their own. In this way, your endurance becomes a gift not only to yourself, but to all who cross your path. So stand, even when standing feels impossible. Speak, even when your voice trembles. Walk, even when your steps falter. For each act of persistence declares to the world and to yourself that you are unbreakable. And when the day comes, as it surely will, when you look back upon this season of collapse, you will see not the ruins, but the rebirth, not the silence, but the strength, not the loss, but the lessons. And you will know beyond doubt that nothing in this world, not failure, not betrayal, not hardship, can overcome the spirit that refuses to break. And so, when life falls apart, when the silence grows heavy, and the ruins lie all around you, remember this: you are not finished. You are not defeated. What looks like an ending is often the beginning of something greater. Strength is not built in comfort, but in collapse. Courage is not born in ease, but in adversity. And the measure of a man, the measure of a woman, is not how high they climbed when the skies were clear, but how steadfastly they rose when the storms swept everything away. Do not let the rubble define you. Let it remind you that you still have breath, you still have will, you still have a spirit that cannot be broken. Rise once more, stand once more, begin once more. For in the end, it is not the fall that defines you, it is the rising.